Did you know that 92% of people never achieve their goals? That's heartbreaking to me. That means those goals or dreams don't even make it past the planning stage. But if you're someone who is determined to be part of the 8% who do, this podcast is for you. Before we dive in, I'd love for you to take a moment to rate and review the podcast. Your support helps me to continue to bring these meaningful and hopefully inspiring conversations to help you take action and achieve your dreams. So let's do this. Hello and welcome to this week's episode. I'm so excited to bring you this guest today. She is a public speaker, master life coach, and author. And hilariously, I tell this story in the interview, so you'll hear it, but I've literally got all her books. And I didn't even realize this until I started doing some deep research. She is the extraordinary Shannah Kennedy. This conversation was one of those conversations where it's like every few seconds there's a gold nugget. And when I was editing this episode, it was so fun because I went through, I go through and pick, parts of it, clips to put on social media where you can find it. And there was just so many of them and it was hard to even choose. So this is a conversation where we dive deep into what it means to live a life that's true to you and how to even do that, where to begin. I loved this episode. And if you're someone who is looking for the tools, the tricks, the process in how to even go about living the life that you want, she gives it to you in this. It's really extraordinary the way she lays it out simply for you. And of course, her books, they're incredible resources and tools for you to dive deeper into you as a person, your goals, your passions, what lights you up. And it really gives you clarity as to where you want to go next in life and how to even plan that. So I'm so pumped for this episode. Please enjoy this episode with Shannah Kennedy. Shannah, thank you so much for chatting with me today. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Jackie. It's great to be here, and we've got a great conversation ahead of us. I know we do.
We certainly do. I'm so pumped. You are a master life strategist. You're a keynote speaker. You have 20 years of experience and you're a best-selling author. And just recently, well, not just recently, it's been a few months now, I got your book, Elevate. And Dimmix is my happy place. So I'll go in and spend hours in there and I'll go through books, and I like to pick books up and flip to somewhere in the middle of the book and hope that has either a message for me or I'm going to resonate with it somehow. And I picked up Elevate. And it was at the end of a chapter where it's got some actions and stuff to think about. And all of us, I looked at that and I'm like, sold, because I love me some action steps. And I went on to then your website and I was scrolling down your list of books. I'm like, holy heck, I've got almost every single one of your books. I didn't even realize.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah. I was just blown away. I'm like, well, it just goes to show, obviously, I so resonate with everything that you're about and your writing. I just love it. And so I really wanted to say that and tell you, but also let the listeners know that, if they're in, a stage in their life or their career where they're feeling a bit stagnant or, need to set new goals and light the fire again, that these are the books for them. So I really wanted to say that.
Kind. That's very kind. I have been writing for a long time.
Yeah.
So probably a good decade now I've been writing books. I've written 8, and I've really written to what I have thought was the most powerful thing at the time. So, different types of experiences, restoration, how to fire yourself up, how to do your life plan, what happens when you get the curveball. Like, there's so many different things that you can go into, and they've all been really relevant for me at some time. So I've really, written from the heart.
And that's the best place to be, isn't it? That's when it really does connect with not only what you're trying to say, but who you're trying to reach as well. And I feel like
Absolutely.
that's why I connect with them
Yeah.
so much as well.
Oh, fantastic.
Shannah, the part of your work that I really find interesting is that you've done a lot of work with elite athletes, and you've coached them into their retirement because, you know, their identity revolves around their sport, their team, their training, their athletic ability. And then once they're out of that, there's a sense of being lost. And I can relate to that at the moment in terms of I've just left a 17-year career and I'm in the waters trying to figure out what's next for me. And so the thing that I would love to ask you, it's a 3-part question.
Okay.
So the questions are, how do you define yourself? How do you define what you do? And then how do you help others do that for themselves?
Okay. Well, so it's first of all, thank you. Everyone's an athlete, I think. You know, every human on this planet, everyone listening to this podcast, I would say is an athlete. They're an athlete of life. They're an athlete of business or their career or a professional athlete, but we're all athletes. We're all running the marathon of life. And I think that people need to allow themselves to think like that in order to be able to plan like that and to plan for success. So all of my clients are athletes. All of these listeners are athletes to me. And I would describe myself not as my job as a life coach. And this is one of the things that actually made me start coaching, was working with elite athletes, is who are you without your job? And it's a really important question for every listener here to think about and to ponder. If we took your job away, what's left? Who are you without the job? And for me, when I lost my job due to my health from burnout, I actually didn't know who I was without my job. I was this sponsorship manager and I was looking after 100 athletes and I was flying around to all these events and life was amazing. And yeah, I know who I am, but actually I didn't. That was my title. So it was in that time that I really had to think about who am I without my job, which really made me do the work. And that's the work that we all need to do to build the person first, who then steps into the job, which is the ride that they're on for the time. So with athletes, it's the same, is who are they without their sport or their team or their football club or without being known as, the 400-meter runner or the swimmer or whatever they are. So if I had to describe myself, I would say as a kind human being who had a strength and value of honesty, who put health, family, and then achievement in that order, and who is a lover of life. I just love to play on the planet every day. And how do I define what I do? Well, I'm a PT for people's lives, really, at the end of the day. And I've raised my family and look after my parents and my friends. And yeah, I just play in the playground of life, I think. And I think what I do with people is help them establish what is the roadmap so that you never, ever lose sight of who you are.
Oh, that is never lose sight of who you are. Just before that, you said you help to build the person. How do you do that? How do you strip away the conditioning, whether that's environmental, whether that's family, whether it's career, work? How do you really define the person and build the person?
Because we need to see you like an onion, and we're peeling back the layers of the external influences, what happened in your childhood, and we want to get back to you, the core of you, in your soul, and what's most important to you in the whole world. And when I say to people and audiences, when I speak, I always say, so just for a moment, what is the most important thing to you in the world today? Just think about that for yourself, the most important thing in the whole world to you today. And it's usually your health or your family or actually yourself. If you strip everything right back, it's I need to look after myself. And that's very confronting and very eye-opening for a lot of people because they've never even asked themselves that question. So we always go right back to the soul and to what's most important to you. And then we establish your set of values. And they're your code of conduct. That's what you are all about. And that's the order that you live in. And when they have that base, that template base, then they go, okay, now I've got a bit of confidence because I know, it doesn't matter what job I do. I know who I am. I know where I want to go and how I want to get there and how I want to feel. I think a lot of people have forgotten to ask the other powerful question is, how do you want to feel every day? Do you want to feel burnt out or stressed, or do you want to feel like you're a part of a team? Do you define yourself by your title and that gives you confidence? And what happens when that's taken away? How would you feel confident? So really, when you work with a coach, we're going into that kind of territory where you get very empowered because you find clarity and purpose and direction no matter what job you're doing.
That's something that I have been working on for a long time. And I, will have these conversations with friends or with people in the gym. And it's interesting to have these conversations because not a lot of people are thinking about what are their own values. So I just find it so fascinating and such, an incredible and important way to start this whole process. And I want to ask, I do want to go back to, the beginning, that full circle, how it started for you. But before we do that, why is this important for people to do this work?
Because when we're not taught this at school, number one, we are not taught at school about values and sense of self and confidence building activities, and we're not taught mental health coping strategies. We're not taught anything at school really for personal development like that. The importance is that when you feel calm and confident and grounded, you can make great decisions. You can weather a few storms. You feel secure enough that, yep, you might get that big curveball thrown at you, but you've got a pretty great set of habits. You know what's important to you and you know what you stand for. When you don't have any of that and you open your Instagram, you go into comparisonitis. You lose sight of who you are. You get very distracted with life and you feel like you're a hamster on the wheel. You don't feel grounded. And when people feel calm and confident and grounded, we produce incredible things. We live a life of gratitude. We live very mindfully, and we find a lot of joy and happiness. Isn't that what everybody wants? So it's really, the importance is when you're grounded, it means your soil is great and you can be a fantastic tree. You can grow and you can weather storms. If the soil has not been looked at and you don't know the ingredients in there, that you're just not producing very well. You're not living well. You're not living life.
Yeah. And if that doesn't sell it on why people should start and do this work right now, I don't know what is. So
I know.
Let's come full circle. Tell us what was the catalyst for you to take a step back, reevaluate, and what set you on this path?
Well, exactly what we were talking about. So working 7 days a week, loved my job, married my job, no self-care, no boundaries, no mental health strategy. Sitting down was lazy. The harder I worked, the bigger the badge of honour for myself. It's how I really identified myself. So I fully ignored all warning signs in the body. So headaches, fatigue, can't sleep, really not being able to concentrate properly. Pushed through for probably 2 years until one day I just couldn't even move. I actually couldn't get out of bed for about a year. No focus. The lights burnt my eyes. The ink of the newspaper would burn my nose. I couldn't have any sound in the house either. So very, very confronting time. This is by the age of 30, and a horrible, painful existence. Like you've got the worst hangover every day, but you didn't have a drink. And it took years of recovery and working with a coach to unpack all of that mental talk that I had about work harder, you are your job, you're a nothing without it, etc. To really build me from the ground up. And that's what sparked everything for me to go and study coaching and coach elite athletes into retirement, because I had seen firsthand, what happens to our athletes when they're dropped from a team, or if they get injured, or if they're too old to play. They've so lost. And this is 25 years ago. So there was no programs for them. You were just a nothing. So you went from hero to zero overnight, and I saw a lot of the very dark side of sport. So I wanted to think about, we all need a life plan. We have a career plan or a business plan, but nobody had a life plan. And that was really thinking about the big picture, about all the jobs that we do are the rides that we get on and off, but they're not who we are. And we need to keep grounded, and we need to keep doing the work on self, and life is going to be a lot smoother. So that's really what started it for me. And studying, 25 years ago to be a coach was, I think I was the first one in Melbourne. And everybody thought I was a complete fool. Like, what are you doing? Well, why would you not have your Jerry Maguire high performance job? And I'm like, well, I think there's a bigger cause here. And I felt a real calling to it. And I've been doing it for 20 years. And I still feel like I can go another 20 years. I love it.
Oh, that's
I love it.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Really setting people up to feel calm, confident, and grounded with a good roadmap for themselves.
Yeah. Tell me about that time with the coach, where you were, dealing with that chronic fatigue, felt awful. How long did it take? Like, did you enlist the coach and, you'd have these conversations, and did it feel good straight away? Like, did it resonate with you, or did it take some time and coaching to sort of get you into that, into the mindset that things needed to change and you did need to look after you, and potentially what you were, thinking in the first place was not obviously healthy?
It took a long time. And one of the first things that I had to do was learn to look in the mirror. And I had to learn to like what I was looking at. And that was very difficult, because when you're an A-type overachieving perfectionist, it's very confronting to actually look at yourself in the mirror and say, I love myself, and to put myself first, and to think about what I needed, and was working that hard a badge of honor? Who for? What was I doing that for? So really starting to go into the onion layers. So it took quite a bit of time until I could look in the mirror and love what I saw, and want to care about her, and do the right thing for her, and put her first, and fill her cup. And it took a long time. It took a long time. But it was such an incredible experience to go through, to unpack the stories that just were not true.
Where did those stories come from?
I think we all have them. They come from, in our days, magazines and billboards, and what happened at school, and what someone said to you in the playground, and what someone said to you in your first job, and your upbringing. And, my upbringing was go hard or go home type of environment, and you were lazy if you sat down. To, today with people with social media, I think it's just a war coming at you every day. So you've got to be really diligent about how you handle that. But I think a lot of the stories that we tell ourselves are just simply not true. I just coached someone for an hour, and all the stories she was saying, I'm like, is that really true? And she's going, not really. I'm like, okay, well, let's get to the facts here. So
Yeah.
we're very good at that. We're very good at making stories to suit ourselves.
Yeah, I know. I try and ask myself, whenever the story comes up, the excuse, like, what is fact here? What are the facts? And
What are they?
generally, it's going to crush everything you think. There's no hiding
Well,
behind
all you need,
facts.
exactly, and your listeners, for all the listeners, they just need to say to them, ask themselves the question, is what I just told myself 100% true? And I catch myself all the time when I say that, is that 100% true what you just told yourself that means? So we're just not taught these skills at school. I think everybody should be having a coach, and I've invested in a lot of coaches over the last 20 years, even for myself, to make sure that I'm not telling myself stories, and so that I'm developing and evolving and pushing myself and getting uncomfortable and rewiring, because that wiring that came in there in the first 20 years of your life is going to be there forever.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I know you said you love what you do now, but if you could go back to that younger you who loved what she did then, what would you do differently to make that life in that moment, that job, that career sustainable?
I would have to park my ego that got in the way,
Yeah.
very much so. And I would have to set some boundaries. I had no boundaries. I would work Saturdays, Sundays, because sport's on the weekend, would never take a Monday off, would work late, go in early. I was also, going to the gym, trying to have a relationship, trying to compete in corporate triathlons, like just burning at every angle, really going to every after party possible. I'd go to the opening of an envelope. So I would have boundaries, and I just had none. I was open slather, and I was never taught boundaries either. And I think we should be taught that at school too, to protect the asset, which is yourself, your health. And your health doesn't mean, oh, do you feel good? Your health is your physical health, it's your mental health, it's your emotional health, and your spiritual health. And I had no regard or knowledge of any of them.
Yeah. What I find so interesting is the fact that regardless of who we have around us, what's going on around us, the one constant thing in our lives is ourselves, our body, and our mind. Like that is the relationship you will always have till the day you are not here. And why we don't nurture our relationship to ourselves is really fascinating to me.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, we are with ourselves from our first breath
Yeah.
to our last breath in life,
Yep.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week,
Exactly.
every minute, every second. And people come in and out of our lives, maybe for an hour, maybe for a minute, maybe for decades. People are in and out coming through, but we are the one constant. But we're really not taught how to develop a great relationship with ourselves, like we were our best friend, to nurture ourselves, to protect ourselves, to talk to ourselves like we would our best friend, to feed ourselves, to move our bodies, to do that emotional training, the mental health training, to really support ourselves. And I always call my clients a tomato plant, and it's like you want to give your tomatoes away or have great tomatoes, but no one wants to look into the soil. You go around looking at everyone else's soil, when every day you could do a couple of things to add to your soil, which would produce great tomatoes. But it's what are those things, and what are your things that you need to do for your mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health every day that support you, and what stakes do you tie yourself up to in the sand so you don't fall over when the wind blows. So it's a great analogy, and when I talk about that with my clients, immediately they say, "Oh yeah, I don't do anything to my soil." Like, well, yes, well that's where we need to start.
You're like, exactly.
Number one, go and look at the plant every day, which is the mirror. Go and look.
Yeah.
Go and
Oh,
look. Go
yeah.
and look first. Then go and see, what do I need to stop doing that is damaging this plant? And
Yeah.
what do I need to do to infuse this soil so it's rich and it's whole and
Exactly.
it's wealthy, so I can give my tomatoes to other people? It's so simple, yet it's just not taught.
Yeah. Yeah. Not taught, not done. You help people design a long-term life plan. And based on what you were saying just then, we don't look after ourselves. What are the basics to designing a really powerful, empowering life plan? Are we looking at ourselves and helping ourselves first, or is it design the plan and then figure everything else around that? Like how do the basics work?
So think of a life plan as a roadmap, like a map of Australia. And people say, oh, well, I live in Melbourne. And I say, well, that's great. Where are you going? I don't know. So I'll say, well, what if we said, we're going to Sydney and then Brisbane and then Darwin and then Perth and we're going to finish in the Maldives? How does that sound? Oh, great. Instantly, they actually now think, I've got somewhere to go. I've got a direction. So we plan in pencil always. So the life plan always starts with, your 20-year-older self. So I'm in my 70s. The questions I would ask myself is, how do I want to feel? Where do I want to be financially? Where do I want to be emotionally? What life experiences do I want to have experienced in my 50s, my 60s, my 70s? And then we start to create the roadmap and the plan, which obviously is in pencil because things happen. But what happens is we get great confidence when we have a plan for ourselves. It means we feel like we're in the driver's seat, not the passenger seat. Now, we might not know what career pathway takes, where that may take us, but the rest you can control. Your health, the way you move, the way you eat, the way you sleep, the way you breathe. That can be fine-tuned every single year for the rest of your life as a KPI, as a goal. What do I need to fine-tune this year to get optimal energy or joy out of my body? We have all these jobs, but we don't see them as jobs. We see them as, I don't know, habits that we can't stick to. But I see them as part of the roadmap. It's the fuel that we put in the car every day and where we're going. Then when you watch TV and you see something in Perth or something in Darwin, you can scribble it on your map. So the map is basically 20 years down the page, with you 20 years down the page with your years every single year, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, and you will see you have a long marathon. And you are the athlete of life. How do you want to pace yourself? Does everything need to be done this year? No, not when you see it on paper. When you see it on paper, you go, we could pace ourselves. We could learn maybe one or two amazing skills every year that would help me feel the way I want to feel. So I could spend a whole year learning to breathe, and that would carry me through the rest of my life. Or I could spend a year learning gratitude or mindfulness, but becoming a master of some skills that would support us for the rest of our life. So when you have a plan like that, you have purpose. You have clarity. You know why you're learning something. You are all feeding the asset, and you go to work on top of that. But really, you're working for the business of you, and that's pretty exciting.
It so is. And I love how you said, you could spend the year working on your breathing. And that might sound really small to some, but like the breath is so powerful in our body, in calming the nervous system, in everything that we do. And I love that you mentioned that, because I feel like, when you're looking at a plan and, you got really big, great goals, it can really seem overwhelming. But when you break it up in those years, it does make it manageable. And I can't remember who said this, but they said we overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do and achieve in 10 years. I think that was something.
And we just forget that what is the skill that you need to learn that's going to be the base of the soil, right? So yes, we're going to set great goals, which is on top of the plan. We're going to train it to go here and everything. But let's master some of the skills that we need for the soil, because that's, at the end of the day, that's all that's going to matter. And it's going to give us the energy to what we want to get to. So breath work, for example, is going to help you with overwhelm. It's going to help with anxiety. It's going to change your nervous system. It's going to fire you up when you need firing up. It's going to calm you down when you need calming down. It is the ultimate soft skill to master. And it can change your mood. It can change your hormones. And breath is life force. So why not go and learn probably the most important skill that you can, because no one's breathing. Everyone is running their marathon without taking a breath, and they're exhausted and they're burnt out. They don't know how to pace themselves. They're reactionary. They're overwhelmed. They have anxiety. It's all too much. But they haven't learned the skill that's going to fix it all, which
What
is
are
breath.
some of those other ones that are real foundational skills?
I think gratitude is one. Like when we all feel stuck many times, but when we really learn to live in gratitude and be grateful for the smallest of things, the taste of the coffee, just the comfort of your bed, the hot running water. Every time we turn a tap on, we have water, even water. So you change your vibration in your body every time you notice the smallest of things. There is mindfulness, which is sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. Is really going into using those amazing senses to really live a present life, so that you feel like you've lived a day on the planet, not you're a hamster on the wheel, exhausted. So calming the body as much as we can in this frenetic world that we live in, I think is a superpower.
Yeah. Everything that you mentioned, um, like for me, what comes to mind when we practice these skills, especially when you mention mindfulness and the senses, we're so used to, like you said, being on the hamster wheel and life is going by. But when we are able to bring ourselves back into the present moment, it's like everything comes to life. It's like that black and white movie is now in color, and you've got surround
Yes.
sound and there's vibration. Like it all, you can really feel and
Yeah.
soak that up. Why wouldn't you want to
And like
live through
and
life like
oh,
that?
it's exciting when you look out the
Yeah.
window and you challenge yourself to see how many different shades of green you can see.
Yeah.
It's actually mind blowing when you look closely,
Yeah.
and you learn how to gaze. When you
Yeah.
learn how to gaze at something and take it all in. So people say, "What about meditation?" And that's great, but I don't have time to sit and meditate. Um, Breathing is important to me. It is the basis of meditation, and people want to go and meditate, yet they can't breathe. So learn to meditate in the supermarket queue. Learn to meditate at the lights, where you learn how to breathe and calm yourself down and become present. We can learn it while we're walking. We can learn it along the way, in our everyday life.
You earlier spoke about values, and I would love to know how you help your clients align their values with their goals. Is that a conversation that's had?
hmm So first of all, it's establishing your top five to 5 values that you have, which are your code of conduct. So they are in all of my books. I don't think there is a book without it, because I think it's the most foundational, fundamental thing. Is when you work out your top 3 values. So mine are health, then family, and then achievement. So if I'm not achieving every day, I'm miserable. But the achievement might be, did I take 3 breaths every time I washed my hands today, to calm myself, to ground myself? Because that's actually really hard to do, to remember to do. Whereas selling more books or getting more clients, that was how I used to value achievement. Now it is, what did I do for the soil? What did I do today for the soil? Because that's the biggest achievement of all. So then when we go and set goals, it's, do they add to the values or take away? Does it really add to my health doing this? Does it really add to my how I show up as a human for my family, my friends, my clients? And does it give me a sense of achievement, or is it my ego talking? So it's really helpful. And a lot of clients of mine go for jobs and we're like, it's so against your values. And they end up saying, yeah, I would be miserable there. And we just chop it off. We just say, no, why go any further? Why put yourself through all of this pain? So or they're in a relationship that's totally against their values. It gives them permission to say no. It gives them permission to leave. So when we work for our values, it gives us permission to say yes or no as closely as we can to get in alignment with our values. You know, if you're doing something against your values, you know you feel quite ill in the belly.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
all know
Can't
that
hide from
feeling,
that.
right?
Yeah.
You can't hide from it. So we feel it, yet we keep going. So when you're very clear on the values in words, it will pull you back and say, yeah, it's easier to say no.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you distinguished achievements from the external to the internal. Um,
Mm,
that was,
mm.
yeah,
Well, you
beautiful.
know, you get great confidence, and people strive to feel confident in themselves, and
Yeah.
that's an inside job. It's not an outside job, because
Mm.
when we have achievements and happiness that is external, we buy a new shirt, it feels great for a week, and then it's just a shirt. Or,
Exactly.
you know, we have a holiday and it felt great while we were there, but then it's gone the minute you touch down. These are all external. You get the
Mm.
job promotion, you get the pay rise. It's all external. It doesn't actually generate deep seated confidence. That comes from the inside. So
Mm.
when we're doing things that ground us and really make us feel like we're in the driver's seat, not the passenger, and we walk slower through life, even though we're high performing humans, we're really measured. And the confidence is deep. It's deep seated. It's beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to know, has your experience working with elite athletes, and I know you said we're all athletes, but you know that elite, the high performing athletes, has that influenced the way you coach or the work that you do, from that high performance mindset into, say, your everyday corporate worker, or the creative? Does that influence the
Mm,
way you coach, or has that had an
definitely.
impact on what you've done? Yeah, tell me more.
Definitely, definitely, because I call it high performance living. So it's really about clarity.
Yeah.
So high performing athletes, elite athletes have clarity. They know exactly where they want to get to and how they're going to get there. So they've got clarity that a lot of people just don't have. So when we set values and habit plans and goals, it's all high performance, it's clarity. The other thing that elite athletes teach us that we don't do as normal athletes is they prioritize recovery. So they don't overtrain, because if they want to perform and do PBs and get to the next Olympic Games, they can't burn out. They cannot burn out. So they prioritize high performance recovery to go with their high performance training. And so I always say to my clients, what are you doing to recover from the marathon that you ran today in your life that you were holding your breath for? So, what is your recovery plan? And so, most people, I would say 99% of people that I coach, don't have a recovery plan. They don't have habits to warm up, they don't know how to pace the day, and they don't have a recovery plan at night time. So, once we get that established with some very simple things, they feel empowered. They feel like, actually, I am recovering and I am consciously doing this. I'm not just sitting on the couch.
Yeah. My next question was kind of a follow on, but I think you've answered it, but it's flipped. So the next question was going to be, how do you talk to those elites about the self care, their well being, and even the mental well being? Um, I assume it would still apply to them. I know you just said that, what they do is they focus on high performance recovery as well. But,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
with that, their mindset being on they must perform at their best, are there moments where they're not taking care of themselves, whether it is the mental aspect? How do
Mm,
you have that conversation with them, but also, everyone else? Because that does seem to be the first thing that goes by the
yeah.
wayside. It's the first thing that we drop when things get stressful and all of that.
I think with elite athletes in particular, I would say most of them have nobody to talk to
Mm.
where they can be their authentic self. So when you have a coach like me, it's a private conversation. So the coach doesn't want to hear it. The strength and conditioning person doesn't want to hear it. Your family, it's actually, you need a safe place to unpack your thoughts, to say what is most important and how am I feeling. And the coach is there to give you permission to do that. And I think that is a part of self-care, is sitting with yourself in a safe environment with someone holding the space saying, what's most important to you right now? Because the coach is not going to ask that, the sport coach or the business coach. They're not going to ask those questions. And it might be, a 1%, 2% change in the way that they're thinking, or the way they look in the mirror, or the way that they breathe, or something that allows them to feel connected to self. And, I've coached marathon runners in the Olympics, and they've taken up jewelry making, for example. And that has actually made them win, because they got to give their brain a little rest by doing something else. And they couldn't work out how to do that until they worked with me. And I said, well, what would fill your cup? So take the running away. Let's take all the running away. I just want to make jewelry. Great. Well, let's just start making one piece of jewelry at a time. While you're doing your stretch or whatever it might be, something creative, because with running, it's so strategic, and each kilometre is strategic, and what you're thinking, how you're breathing, what your stride is, what your fueling is. There's no creativity. So when we introduce a little bit of creativity, all of a sudden they're not resentful of the running, which is their job. So small things like that you work with a life coach on, to just bring in that how do I fill my cup thing without it being a strategic plan
I
for a
love
lot of
that.
people.
Yeah. Do you
Or they
think,
might do it paint by numbers, they might do it
yeah,
paint by numbers.
yeah,
And because it
absolutely.
actually, when you do that, your brain stops working and
Yeah.
it's focused. Everything gets a chance to settle.
Mm,
But without someone giving them some ideas around that, or talking to them about things like that, they
mm,
can't think of it. They're very stuck in their
yeah.
routine.
And they get to go into a complete different style and set of flow than what they're used to.
Exactly.
And that's
And it's a
always a nice place
relief.
to be.
Yeah.
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 Um, do you think creativity is necessary in everyone's life? And when I say creativity, like, it doesn't have to be art, paint by numbers, or dancing or whatever it is. But do you think creativity is something that we all need as, a basic human skill or outlet?
Yeah. Yeah. But it can be, how do you create your morning routine?
Mm,
It doesn't have to be colourful and art based or music based or anything like that. It can be, you need to create the roadmap and the experience that you want in life in order to feel how you want to feel. And we all want to feel different. And we've all got different bodies and different minds. So you need to be the creator of your own roadmap. And that means your daily map, the way that you wake up. Does it work for you or not work for you? Does, touching your phone in the morning and looking at Snapchat and Instagram and breaking news and your emails and your messages and TikTok work for you? Or could you create something different? So get in the creative seat here and get in the driver's seat. So it doesn't need to be art. It can be anything.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know I'm currently living at home with my parents. We're in the process of moving interstate. And what I've noticed about my mum is that she loves to cook, and that getting creative with the
Mm,
ingredients and the flavors is something that has really come about since we've moved in. So it can be anything, and
can be anything.
it's
Mm,
really fun to see and experience as well. um,
yeah.
I'd love to know how you coach clients through those really challenging times. Like, they've got their life plan, they've got their goals, but shit has hit the fan, and it's really tough to either stay on track or have the, that positivity, or even that drive still to keep with it.
So we always think of the tomato plant and there was a big storm and some branches fell off, right?
Yeah.
We've got to keep staying in the soil.
Yeah.
We've got to go back to the soil. So what are the basics that you can do today that you're in control of? So we call it control the controllables. Is what are you in control of today? How you breathe, what you eat, how you move your body, and what you tell your mind, what story you're telling yourself. So we always strip everything back to the basics because it's just too much for a lot of people to handle. When it hits the fan and they've lost their job or they can't pay the bill or someone's had a breakdown or whatever it might be, okay, just go back to basics. Just focus on the basics, and people try and problem solve the whole thing. It's too much. So if you go back to the basics, your brain will be able to find the solutions for the first part and then the second part and then the third part and put you in control. And that's how you can think clearly again.
Amazing. What about the person who is at a crossroads? They're not sure what lights them up or where they want to be going next. How do you have the conversation with that person?
Well, they're my favourite clients. I get lots of those. I'm at a crossroads. Okay, great. So for a lot of the time, they're not. They haven't actually looked back and seen where they've come from a lot of the time. So they've just been the hamster on the wheel. Success leaves clues. Your past leaves clues. So not only do we do the plan moving forward, we backdate it 10 years. And they are filling in what has happened and unfolded the past 10 years. And they're like, wow, look at my life. It's incredible. Look what I've done. Look what I've achieved. Look what I've experienced. Great. So you're not really at a crossroads. You just keep evolving. You just keep evolving.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need to trust, but we need to make sure we're very clear on what's most important to us, what our values are, and what you want to do and feel moving forward. And when you know how you want to feel, you can really get rid of some of the noise out there of, well, actually, I don't really want that and I don't want that. And sometimes you need to work with someone who's neutral, who's not emotionally attached to you, to just cut through all of that haze and just simplify it for you.
Yeah. How do you encourage someone to trust? Trust the process, trust themselves.
You can always trust if you've done the work on the soil. You just can. You just can. When you're doing the basics and doing them well and focusing on gratitude and mindfulness and breath work and what you can control, good things happen all the time, all the time. When you're not doing any of that and you're not looking after yourself, your money, your relationships, your friendships, the basics, not looking in the mirror, not connected with self, it's pretty hard for the universe to deliver, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I'd love to know, based on your experience, which is a hell of a lot, where you've come from, how do you approach the definition, or your definition of success? And then how do you have that conversation with clients who potentially have the definition of Shannah back when she was working too hard, had no boundaries, and was overworked?
Great question. So what does success mean to you? That's one of my questions to my clients. And they will say, success is when I've got this car and I've paid this off and I've got 3 children and we go on holidays and we're flying first class. I'm like, okay, that's great. Now let's really talk about what success means. So how do you feel successful today? What is it that makes you feel successful today? Because we don't want to wait till then. We want to have it today. We need to
Oh,
live today. So for me, success is living the life I choose. I am choosing whether I work at night or not. I am choosing what I eat or how much exercise I do or how much sleep I have. I am in the driver's seat, and that makes me feel successful. So if we put a lot of external measurements on it as well, which we can, absolutely, they are goals to go and achieve. But you need to be able to tap in, what am I doing that makes me feel successful today? And you really, when you think about that, a lot of people are very successful today, but they're not allowing themselves to feel it. They keep moving the goalposts. So they never get to celebrate. And when we celebrate every small win that we have every day, every little success every day, we create magic. We create big things. We create one book at a time or one product at a time. Or I've coached over 1,000 people now. So just coaching one person at a time and being grateful for it and giving my best service by making sure I had the right energy for that person, it adds up to a really big success story. But you can't start with that. You have to start with, what can I do today that points me in the direction of that roadmap that I created, that I can enjoy, that I can do really well, and that I can learn from. I need to show up today. So I think when I work with people around success, it's park your ego, which is talking about how many books have you sold and how many clients do you coach and how many keynotes have you delivered. Park the ego. What does success mean to you today? I looked in the mirror. I took my breaths. I showed up being the best version of myself. I walked this morning. I went to Pilates. I did the gym after Pilates. I had a black coffee instead of a milk coffee. Like, what are the choices that I'm making today that make me feel how I want to feel? That's success.
yes. And I love that, because that comes back to what we were saying before with trust. Each of those little things, you're building trust in yourself because you have done those smaller steps that have created
Yeah.
the bigger success over the day.
Correct, correct. It's like people at night time saying, "I just flop on the couch." And I'm like, well, how do you want to feel? Well, I don't want to feel so exhausted. Okay. Well, you've been sitting all day. So what could you do in front of the TV before you get to the couch? You could lie there with your legs up the wall and watch TV. You could do some stretching and open up your chest and open and release your back while you're watching TV. There's things that we can just tweak along the way. So you get to the couch, but you feel good. You
Mm.
don't feel just a crumpled mess. So it's honoring self. I think it's honoring
Oh,
self.
I love that, honoring self. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shannah, this has been so fantastic, and I've loved chatting with you today. I've got one more question for you, and then I'll hand it over to you to ask a question to the listener.
Mhm.
My last question is, what do you believe is the most misunderstood aspect of living our dream life?
That you can have it all at the same time.
Ooh, tell me more.
There are age. So I think that everyone thinks that every day needs to be happy, and it should be happy. There is no lotus without mud. We need to experience the range of emotions, and there are ages and stages and seasons in life. So what I was doing at 20 is different at 30, is different at 40, is different at 50, and it keeps evolving. And I think what people do is they look at and see something that's a very mature tomato plant, and they want it instantly. But it evolved. It evolved by starting small and honoring self first. And I don't know if I've answered the question there. Might have gone off on a tangent, but I think, yeah, I think people need to slow down. I
Yeah,
think people need to slow down.
I mean, that's the perfect message to finish this off anyway. Start small and honor yourself. I mean, that's just, we're not doing that,
Mm.
and we must. And from that, so much will come. So I
And I
think
think
that's
another one is a misconception is people think that if you're not an extrovert and you're not confident, you're not going to make it, right? They're just louder than us, that's all. But if you're an
exactly.
introvert like me and you have deep inner confidence, you can often way out past that person anyway. So honor who you are. If you are an introvert, honor that. Don't try to be something that you're not, but work with who you are and what you've got. I think is really important.
Absolutely. And what is one question you would like to ask this listener today?
So, to my beautiful listeners out there, I would say two questions for you today to write down is what is most important to you in the world today, and be very, very honest with yourself. The most important thing to you in the world. And the question to follow that is, what do you need to stop doing that no longer serves you? Because a lot of people say, oh, you need to start doing this. But I'm going to flip that and say, what do you need to stop doing that doesn't work for you, that you can leave behind as you evolve into your true self?
Love it. And that creates so much space for so much more.
Exactly. And it's easier to stop something, isn't it? That's
Yeah,
really sabotaging
exactly.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Shannah, this has been wonderful. I so appreciate your time. Thank you for chatting with me today.
It is my pleasure. And to all the listeners out there, think about your roadmap. Think about getting in the driver's seat and not in the passenger seat. And also being really open to learning the skills that support you, the person.
Amazing. And I'll have all the links in the show notes to your books because they're life-changing, literally.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. How good was she? I love Shannah and I love talking to her and I love reading her books and I love all the resources that she provides you in order to find, that deep meaning in your life and where you want to be going and how to then plan that. So I'm going to have all the links in the show notes for you, her resources, her books, and if you want to get in touch with her as well. If you loved this episode, please share it with your friends. Leave a review and of course subscribe to the channel because it all helps me continue to bring these awesome guests to you. As always, stay awesome and I will catch you in the next one.